Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre and today we are talking all about blending. So let's jump right in and start. Okay, so today we are doing a very quick lesson on blending. I have touched on this subject in almost every one of my paintings, but I realized I didn't have a designated video just for this technique, and I think it's important, so that's what we're doing today. I've already painted a couple items here, which we are going to be blending some shadows over top. But first, we're going to do a couple little drills, and then we will get right into making these a bit more three-dimensional. Okay, so the term blending can refer to, in my opinion, two different things. Blending could be blending two colors together, so having a blue and a pink and then blending them in together in the middle, and then you get a purple. That's one way. And then another way is when you kind of add a darker shadow onto something and then you want that seamless line. You don't want a line. You don't want a harsh water line. You want that shadow to blend out nicely. And that is a tricky skill, but I can definitely teach you, and that's what we are going to learn today. So the first thing we are going to learn is kind of blending two things together, because that is what I do when I do my skies. So my backgrounds and my sunsets, I do a lot of blending. So we're going to do a little drill with that. I've done this in my drills video, but we're just going to kind of go over it. So we're doing a mini one up here, so you can get out your paints. And I'm just going to start with some yellow. We're going to start with some yellow at the bottom here. Okay, it's pretty pigmented. And I'm just going to move it up. Okay, and as you're dragging it up, it slowly starts to lose its pigment just a little bit, which is what you want. But you want it to kind of lose its pigment sometimes a little bit more to get lighter. So you can always wash your brush off, dry it a little bit, and then bring it up a bit more. Okay, so it's a bit lighter. That will help you when you're blending two colors together that don't necessarily blend well together. Like if you're doing a purple into a yellow sky and you don't want them to mix in the middle and turn brown, you would lighten that up to the middle and then lighten the purple up to the middle and then kind of blend that very, very light value of both colors so it's not turning necessarily brown, if that makes sense. But let's just keep going. So I'm going to do pink. I'm going to grab some pink. And this is just a really good drill to do. Okay, go to the top and bring it down to the middle. And then you start blending those two colors in the middle like that. And you have a really nice gradient from one color to the next. Okay, so it goes pink kind of to this like orangey color to yellow. So we can add a bit more color. We can make it a bit more orangey in the middle if you want. Wash off my brush, go yellow up. It's starting to dry pretty fast because it's a little bit warm in my room right now. There you go. And you just got to be really soft with your hand. I also find that blending can be a lot harder on cheaper watercolor paper. So keep that in mind. 100% cotton paper always works the best with blending. So if you're still struggling, it may not be you, it may be your paper. Okay, so that's blending two colors together for a sky. And as you saw there, I was doing this like pulling motion, and that's all you're going to be doing for these when you're adding a shadow that you want to blend out on an object. So we're going to practice that. So take any color you like. I'm just going to take some Payne's Gray. Okay. And we're going to practice this pulling motion. And this is what you want to do on these objects. So you're going to lay down your color and you're going to slowly pull it down like you did here. Then you're going to wash off your brush just a little bit, dry it. So it's not too wet. You don't want it dripping because then it's going to push the pigment back, and you're going to continue to bring it down. See how it gets lighter? Wash it off, dry it a little bit, blend it out. Okay, and that's how you're going to avoid those really sharp lines. It's just going to blend out into nothing. Okay, you can try it again if you want, go over top. But really the trick is wash off your brush, dry it off, and then you're going over a little bit of that color to drag it down a bit. And you don't want to drag it all the way down. You're going to wash it again so you have even less pigment and drag it down so it's a nice smooth gradient. Okay, let's practice that again. Let's try a different color. Let's get some purple. Okay, and you can just do like a whole bunch of swatches of this. Okay, start pulling it down, stop, wash off your brush, dry it, and then you're just going on top of the line right here. You don't want to bring it all the way from the top, just from where you kind of stopped, not down here, right where you stopped, and continue to blend it down. Okay, stop. Go right where you stopped, on top of where you stopped, bring that color down until it gets so light that there's barely any color, and then it will really fade into nothing. Okay, if you feel like it's not as soft of a gradient there, you can definitely go over it again, pull it down a bit more, wash it, and you just keep washing off your brush. That's all you do. You pull, wash off your brush, dry it, pull it down, wash off your brush, dry it, over and over again. Okay, so now let's actually work on blending out shadows on an actual object. So as you can see, this little flower bud and this apple, they are quite flat. There's no dimension to them, no shadows, nothing. So usually I would add shadows by doing wet on wet. So while I did this first layer, I would tap in some darker color, and then that would kind of blend out that way. But there is another way to do it, and that's waiting for it to fully dry and then going back and adding your shadows in later. One little tip I have with everything watercolor is always start out lighter. You can always make something darker, but you can't necessarily make it lighter. So always start off with a light wash with everything. So that's kind of what I did here. So let's grab some pink. I have some of my permanent rose. And you're going to do the same thing that we did here, this pulling motion. So place where you want your shadow. So let's say down here at the bottom. This is a little bit of an awkward angle. That looks weird, right? I'm going to wash off my brush, dry it, and I'm just going to start to pull it. Wash off my brush, dry it, pull it until there's like no more pigment. Okay, I'm just moving it around. And you're going to get that nice soft blend from dark to light. Okay. And now that that's all wet too, if you really wanted to, you could also just tap in and do some wet on wet that way. Maybe a little bit around the sides. Like that. Okay, but start off with that pulling motion if it's already dried. Let's do it on the other side of the petal. Okay, so we'll start with our darker color down here. Wash off our brush, dry it. There's still a little bit of pigment on my brush. Okay, don't leave it for too long or else it's going to leave a harsh line. You really want to get in there quite fast and start to blend it out. Wash off my brush, dry it, blend it out. And see, look how seamless that is. Okay, and then if it looks like there's a bit more pigment here and it just kind of fades out really quickly, start again from the top and blend it out. Bring it down. Just make sure that the whole thing is evenly wet or you're going to get those weird funky watermarks. Okay, and I can go back in and just tap a little bit more if I like. Looks a little bit harsh, right? Dry off my brush and I'm just going to blend it out. Make sure it's wet. And also when you're doing this, you don't want it ever to be soaking wet. Okay, you don't want any pools, you don't want any puddles. You want it to be a nice light sheen if you were to tilt it, so a nice shine. But if you were to tilt it, you don't want any puddles. So if that happens, just take your paper towel and dab it up. And there you go. Let's add some shadow to this leaf. So I'm going to add a bit of a darker color. Okay, make sure your brush is not dripping wet. You can always tap it on your paper towel just to make sure. And maybe I'll do like an indent in the middle here. Okay, like that. Wash off my brush, dry it, and I'm just going to touch the edge of that to blend it out on that side. Touch it on the other side to blend it out. Wash and dry off my brush. Just continue to move it. So it's a nice soft line, but then you can go back in and add a bit more. Okay, let's blend it out a bit more. Wash and dry it off my brush and just moving it down. And then this way, moving it up. Like that. That's one way to do it. Or you can do it right from the root or where the stem would be. Have it a little bit darker here. I actually picked a bigger brush than I should have. And then blend it out. Wash off my brush, dry it, blend it out. And then again, like I said, it's all wet. So you can always go back in and add some of that darker pigment if you want it a little bit darker, and then you can continue blending it. See, and it just makes it look a little bit less flat. Okay, I'm just moving it down. Like so. You can bring some of that dark parts over here if you want. I kind of like the look of that one better than the line in the middle, but that's cool. Okay, and then let's do our apple here. So it's a pretty light red. I'm gonna grab some more red, maybe a darker red. Okay, and I want the shadow to be on this side. So I'm gonna start with my dark line over here. Along this side. It's pretty big, I know. Remember, don't leave it for too long because it will have a harsh line if you do. And blend it out. Bring it down this way. Wash, dry, blend. Now, I don't know if you can see this. Actually, you can. I'm getting a funny watermark here, and that's because I had more water on my brush when I went back in to go blend it out. So to fix this while it's still wet, I'm just gonna go back over that dark part. So it's all the same evenness of water. See how you fix that? Just go back in and kind of spread out that water. So now I went in with clean water, and now I'm just gonna fill up the rest of this apple. And I'll continue to add in more pigment now that it's all wet again. This is typically why I usually add in the shadows with wet on wet first, just because I tend to end up doing wet on wet anyway, just in my work. I'm just gonna blend it this way. But if you want to do like more detailed florals, this is a good way to do it, to add the shadows in after and then blend it out. Can make it look a bit more realistic. Let's add a bit more darkness to the bottom here. Because it's wet on wet, it's gonna have a pretty nice gradient. And I'm just kind of blending around. Make sure you don't have too much water. That's when you get those watermarks. And if you do, just try and go over the whole thing again. And this, just keep in mind, this takes practice, okay? It definitely takes lots and lots of practice. Like so. It's just a little bit more three-dimensional. Let's grab a smaller brush and I'll do that leaf up there. Okay, same kind of thing we did here. Adding that dark color. Need to wet this a bit more. That dark color to the base. Wash it off. Blend it out. Wash it off. Dry it. Blend it out. Go back in and add a bit more dark color if you like. Wash it off. Blend it out. Just remind yourself that when you go to wash it off, you tap it on your paper towel so you don't add those watermarks. Okay? And this will help too if, like, say we wanted to separate these petals. Is this dry enough? I think it's dry enough. Let's hope it's dry enough. Let's say I want to actually separate these petals and it's not a loose flower. I can do it again by doing that dark line there and then blending it out this way. And wash, dry, blend. And then it gives them that separation too. Okay? But there you go. There is your lesson on blending. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye!